In today's video, we're going to be diving into the tropics where we have seen our hurricane die down. We do have an area of disturbance as a result of that, but really the odds of this one redeveloping aren't looking too great. We do see in the upcoming pattern still a northeast snowstorm, so I did mention that likely after one run that would just be gone, but that is not the case. This European model is still continuing to show that, so we're going to look at that once again. Also, big snowstorms out west happening pretty consistently now for this time of year. And then the temperature pattern, big cool down on the way right around Halloween. That is going to be the most major Arctic blast of the season and more cold air in the long range that we need to discuss. Before we dive into things, be sure to check out Prestige Weather in the description and pinned comment down below, where we do weekly consulting calls, other consulting services, and we just released our third winter forecast in there, which won't be available for the public for a few more weeks. So be sure to check it out today. $5 a month in the description and pinned comment down below. Let's dive into things. On the 7-day outlook, we do have a 30% chance of redevelopment here from post-tropical cyclone Tammy. And same story over the next 7 days. This one does have a 30% chance of redevelopment, but again, that's less than 50%. So, you know, odds are looking less likely than not that this is going to happen. Let's go ahead and just dive into the upcoming pattern. We see snowfall actually ongoing currently. So that is occurring at this point for these areas here. Let me try to get my pen here. Well, the pen is not cooperating, but we do see that there is snowfall happening. Let's see if it's going to work now. There we go. So we see snowfall happening from the Pacific Northwest through the northern Rockies and into the northern plains as well. Some moderate to heavy snowfall in a few different spots. We have this heavy precipitation happening in the boundary area that we've been talking about for multiple days now. By tomorrow afternoon, that snowstorm will lift off. We can see it's now located to the north of Michigan there in Canada, and we do see snowfall happening in Canada as a result of this. Cold front underneath, kind of a stationary front as it's just sitting tight. Warm front here, so we do see warm air surging up the eastern seaboard there. Some remnant snow showers happening still for the northern Rockies, but overall for Friday, October 27th, we do see a quieter day. For Saturday, October 28th, we get some pretty broad low pressure somewhere in here. We're just going to draw an L so that we have a reference point here. But to the north of it, we do see snowfall happening, mostly for Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and even stretching from Nebraska, South Dakota into Minnesota and Iowa there. Plenty of snowfall occurring. Now by Sunday, on October 29th, what we see is that still around this boundary area between the warmth and the cold, we do see heavy precipitation occurring. As you know, you've probably learned this since elementary school, but warm air and cold air, the areas in between where they are mixing, precipitation occurs. So that is the simplest weather lesson that probably any of us have learned about. We see it really simplistic like that in this case as well. Same story by Monday the 30th. We're still just seeing these storms occurring here for a lot of Texas up through the Ohio Valley and even into the northeast as this cold air begins to take aim at the east. We can see by the time we are taking a look at Tuesday the 31st, some cold air diving southward here for the central states, warm air surging northward here out west, and we still have a little bit of warmth here in the southeast, and that's why we have, again, this kind of boundary precipitation happening. I want to just move us towards Wednesday, because this is when we start to see a snowstorm occur, still looking like a nor'easter around the mid-Atlantic occurring with that cold air moving in. This brings some interior heavy snowfall. At the very least, if this was to occur, we're still taking it with a grain of salt, but for November 1st, this would mean our first flakes for a lot of higher elevation areas and further inland areas. As we can see, by the afternoon and late in the day, we do see snowfall still occurring for New England as this low drops down to a 985. So for areas like northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and northern Maine, this could mean some accumulating snowfall, especially with how deep that cold is going to be that moves in. We get very quiet at the end of the model run, but we do have a storm system at the very end moving in here to the west, and that will likely be our next storm system. It remains to be known, really, if it's going to dive southward and be our next Rocky Mountain snowstorm, or if it's going to continue through northern Canada, or areas to the north of the United States in Canada. That is going to make all the difference here with this storm, and we don't really know yet what would end up happening with that. But for early November, we do expect another major system to move through there in the first week. Total precipitation here, no surprise. The northwest we are seeing quite a bit. Same story here for this kind of boundary area. We even get nor'easters developing up the east coast, adding on to that as well. Total snowfall here we can see for areas in the Rockies. We're seeing plenty of snowfall here, even the northern plains here. So we see that, and then even here for the interior northeast. Now, those totals look very high. Likely would be a lot less than that. I would say the areas that see accumulation, you're looking at maybe 2 to 6 inches. Again, if this does occur, because of all the melting that's going to take place. Areas that we're seeing grays or blues likely wouldn't see any accumulation. So again, the areas in the purples and pinks would likely be more like what you're seeing in the grays and blues, and then the grays and blues would be likely nothing. So that is probably what you could expect from a system this early in the season. Anywhere in the grays is a dusting. If anything, blues are 2 to 6 inches, purple 6 to 10, pinks 10 to 20 there, and then your pastel blues 20 inches plus. Let's dive into the temperature pattern, shall we? And as we see, warm air prevailing in the east all the way through the end of the weekend, but this major Arctic blast is on the move. We can see it's now kind of centered over the central states, and this is going to move towards the east over time, so we do see that taking place here. Let's just dive into that, and as you can see, by Tuesday, which will be Halloween Day, by the way, on October 31st, and even into Wednesday, which will be November 1st, we see very deep, very cold Arctic air set up over the eastern states, and this is the same exact day that we would have a nor'easter moving offshore of the northeast, and that is why snowfall is possible for this corridor. Now, as we keep going, we see the cold hangs around through the 4th, 5th, 6th, but we do see this warmer air mass kind of moving in towards the east, and that could spell the end of the major cold air, but we have more building up here in western Canada, and this could certainly move into the east. It could move southward into the Rockies. We don't really know what's going to happen with that in the long range, but there is some big question marks there later on. Now, the long range temperature outlook, we see the same thing, cold moving towards the east. It kind of hangs around, it dies down for a little bit there towards early to mid-November. But as you can see, by late November into early December, we see deeper cold air build back in. We still have a very nice positive P&A out here where we see warmer conditions in the west, pretty eastern centered, which would mean this cool down would be very eastern centered like we're seeing here. But nevertheless, the long range pattern supports cold in the east, warm in the west still. We're taking that with a grain of salt, but that is the expectation at this point. Anyway, be sure to subscribe for more daily weather videos just like this one, where we're going to dive into those snowstorms as we're approaching the wintertime. The colder air masses, we'll keep you guys up to date on all of that. And we're going to just continue to keep you guys up to date with the tropics, which should be dying down very, very soon entirely. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.